So solving for consumer and producer surplus and deadweight loss in a monopoly can be kind of tricky. So I wanted to do a video specifically on how to do those calculations. I recommend that you watch the previous 2 or 3 videos on how monopolies choose the profit maximizing quantity, how they check to make sure they're profitable, and the 2 different shapes of the marginal cost curve that you might encounter. Watch those videos first so that you're prepared for this one. So let's go through some of the actual calculations necessary to find the numbers associated with consumer surplus, producer surplus, and deadweight loss. So let's get started. So when you're looking at this analysis, I just sort of made up a story. And in this story, we have an upward sloping marginal cost curve. This is probably a monopoly due to something like maybe a resource monopoly or maybe a patent. And so in this scenario, the profit maximizing monopolist would set marginal cost equal to marginal revenue to get the quantity that they are going to produce in the marketplace. We kept the numbers simple. So they got 2 units produced maybe per hour, per month, hopefully it's not per month. They then plug that into the demand function, and the price that they command in the marketplace is $8. They get that higher price because they limit the release of their product. And so they go to the max willingness to pay that the consumer is willing to pay. If it was a competitive marketplace, they would set marginal cost equal to demand, and they would get a price of $6 and a quantity traded that's higher of $4. In this scenario, we're only going to focus on finding consumer, producer surplus, and deadweight loss in the story of the monopoly. There are plenty of other videos that you can look at for how to calculate that in a competitive marketplace. So let's get started. So let's start with consumer surplus. Now the good news is that the verbiage you use is exactly the same regardless of what industry you're in and what you're producing and what's being traded. And so you just say, what's the price that the consumers face under monopoly conditions? $8. Out to the quantity traded, up to the marginal value. So it's area A. How do you calculate that? Well, it's a triangle, so it's just 1/2 base times height. So 1/2, base would be 2, and then height is 10 minus 8. So 1/2, 10 minus 8 times 2, you put that in your calculator, do that in your head, and you get $2 of consumer surplus. It's not surprising that it's smaller under a monopoly condition than you would see under a free market condition of A, B, and E. Okay, let's move on to producer surplus. It's a little trickier. The reason it's trickier is because producer surplus, again, using the same language, what price is relevant to producers in the monopoly marketplace, $8, out to the quantity traded, down to the marginal cost. So it's B, C, and D. And so we're going to break these areas up so that we can have a rectangle and a triangle, and we're going to add those 2 together. Now I put this number 4 in green because in order to get it, we would have to set marginal cost equal to marginal revenue in order to get the number associated with that intersection. It doesn't actually mean anything. You're not going to see it charged in the marketplace. It's just a means to an end, and the end is producer surplus. So let's start with calculating the area of B plus C. So in this case, it's a rectangle, so it's just length times width. So 8 minus 4 times 2. 8 minus 4 times 2 gets us 8 plus 1/2 base times height for area D. So 1/2, 4 minus 1 times 2 gets us 3. We add that 8 and 3 together and get $11 of producer surplus. Now this is very consistent with our intuition. We would believe that producers have a much larger surplus than consumers in this marketplace. Finally, let's go over deadweight loss. Deadweight loss happens because there are valuable units whose marginal value outweighs the marginal cost, but we're not seeing those being traded. How do you calculate that? Well, just like before, it's 1/2 base times height. This is the tricky part. This is the base, and this is the height. And so sometimes students will accidentally just grab 4, but you really want to grab 1/2, 8 minus 4 times 4 minus 2. It's only this distance, okay? And so when you put that in your calculator, you get a deadweight loss of $4. And so that gives you a great sort of stepping stone for how to calculate consumer and producer surplus and deadweight loss in a monopoly. Hope that helps.